From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. Is Andre Johnson
Jr.
Do not forget the JR on the end of his name, ladies and gentlemen. It's very, very, very important. But before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button to get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And today, we got another banger for you because it's a Victory Monday in the city of New Orleans. Andre Johnson Jr., I am back from the city of Dallas. I flew in late last night, enjoyed that Saints victory over the Cowboys. They put up 44 on Dallas, a team that was 1-0 and does not lose at AT&T Stadium in the regular season until Sunday. So it was a great performance, good vibes, great fan base because guess what? Who Dat Nation was well represented. The roars of the crowd, the Who Dat chants, they all broke out. It was just a phenomenal Sunday. Phenomenal Sunday. And it was a Sunday, honestly, I said they could win. I felt like there was a matchup that they could win, they could exploit. Oh, anybody saw that. 44, never trailed, still haven't trailed this entire season. The Saints are a well-earned 2-0. How you feeling this Monday?
I'm feeling very full, Sean, because I've been having to eat my words a lot lately when it comes to this team. I was very confident in the second half of the season, but when it came to the first half of the season, I thought the Saints might start very slow. I even said 1-5. That is now impossible. The Saints starting off 2-0. Arguably the best team in the entire National Football League. They've been on fire. Like you mentioned, they blew out the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Their first home loss since 2022, coming at the hands of the New Orleans Saints and Derek Carr. And that's where we go for our big picture, Sean. What's that big takeaway that you take from that game?
Yeah, I mean, we can go in so many different directions. I mean, I'm watching that thing develop in front of me last night. It was a beautiful thing. For the second straight week, the game was over by the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to happen in the NFL. You're not supposed to not trail through 8 quarters in the NFL. You're not supposed to blow your teams out in the NFL. It definitely was a statement in September. Now, you want to make statements later in the season, but a statement in September still counts. But my big takeaway is this. Welcome to the spotlight, New Orleans Saints. Now you're on everyone's radar. Now, you can't do that in the NFL the first 2 weeks, catch everyone off guard the way you did, and not all of a sudden be catapulted into the spotlight. They earned it, but now they have to embrace it because guess what? It is here, like it or not. It is only 2 games in, but it's hard to not get excited. But what I really want to go to is this because we all know the catalyst. It's Derek Carr and it's Clint Kubiak. Kubiak, Derek Carr. Carr, Kubiak. They're interchangeable. And I tried to tell y'all, now do you believe me? We must have had at least 10 to 12 different podcasts on this topic because I'm present. What I mean by that is I'm not around Derek Carr a lot, but I'm around him more than the average fan is. But I'm not a teammate of his. But I have some kind of access around him when he comes to interviews and just practice time, training camp, whatever the case may be. And I continue to stress this point, how much it felt like mentally Derek Carr was in a better place this offseason, this training camp, this preseason. It just felt like he was much more comfortable in his own skin. He was much more at ease and just fine with where he stood within the city, the organization, and just his football path, his football journey here in New Orleans. I think that's played out the first 2 weeks. In fact, I don't see how you could argue otherwise because you look at the way he's playing. You look at just the body language right now. Carr, it's truly less is more when it comes to Carr because he's so much more free. He's having so much more fun. He's connected with his teammates. They're having success on the field. They bonded together in LA over the training camp process. He's put in the work to be successful within this new system. This new system highlights his strengths while at the same time takes all the minutia that can weigh a quarterback down or a team down off of his plate and puts it squarely on the shoulders of the play caller. That is Clint Kubiak. Just think about this. I just want you to think about this in your head. The image, the lasting image of 2023 from Derek Carr, to me, was the Eric McCoy, Derek Carr battling, running off the sideline in a heated argument with each other as they're running off the field against Carolina. I mean, that was the image. Now, just think of the stark contrast, the complete 180 from that image to the lasting image for the first 2 weeks of the season, which is your quarterback, Derek Carr, number 4, scoring a touchdown on a quarterback sneak, getting up and having the being comfortable in his own skin to do the Michael Jackson dance, crotch grab and all,
he hit it too,
in the end zone with rhythm, and there was zero cringe factor. There was zero cringe factor, and he owned it. Just think about where you have to be mentally and more confident and just where you're at personally, professionally, to be able to do that. I thought about it last night, just how far that has shifted really in a relatively short period of time. When you talk about the image of him and Eric McCoy fighting, or him doing the thing with Chris Olave, to him doing the Michael Jackson crotch grab dance in the end zone. This season, it really has been something to watch when it comes to Derek Carr. And when you start to win over the I'm live guy on the Hold the Mayo podcast, you know you're starting to see the tides turn when it comes to the fan base's perception of Derek Carr. We asked last week, is Derek Carr starting to win over the fan base? I think the answer is an emphatic yes. But one cannot talk about Carr without talking about Clint Kubiak. Kubiak is the difference. This is not brain surgery. This is not rocket science. We can all see this. But what struck me is not just the fact that Clint Kubiak is kind of found his rhythm so quickly with his new guys. It's the synergy that he seems to have with play caller and quarterback. I don't think it could go any better through 2 games with a new coordinator and his new quarterback, a quarterback he has never worked with before, than it has with Clint Kubiak and Derek Carr these first 2 games of the season. Like I said before, you're not supposed to do this in the NFL. You're not supposed to go 6 for 6. You're not supposed to go 15 straight possessions with scoring points in the NFL to start the season. It has been unreal to watch, and it's just been something to really see, the seismic shift. And I think what really did it is it's how far away the Saints were from the national landscape from a perception standpoint. Heck, from a local standpoint. I think I saw Jeff Duncan did the article with the predictions. What was the best one on there? Was it 11-6?
Probably 11-6.
I think that might have been maybe one person. I had him at 8-9. So we all know. I wrote about it in my blog. We all know it's early, and you do not want to peak too soon, and you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself because these 2 games could potentially be outliers. But it is so hard to not get excited about this. And honestly, I think just the shock to the system from a pretty quiet guy in Clint Kubiak that has just basically, it struck the right chord. And just look at the difference through 2 weeks. I mean, you're just talking about a whole different DNA, a whole different just feel to the franchise right now. And they weathered a lot of storms. There's going to be more on the horizon. I guarantee you this. It feels great right now, but more adversity is going to come. I guarantee you. But they earned this, and frankly, they deserve to have. They deserve the accolades that are coming their way because no one saw this coming.
Definitely. And before I get into my big takeaway, it's important to mention, to kind of play off of what you just said from last year to this year, the Saints were 2-0 last year too.
Yeah,
exactly. They were 2-0 to start the year last year as well, and it didn't feel like this. You didn't have the hope from the fan base, the excitement from the fan base, the attention from the national media. I mean, you watch any major media outlet today, they're talking about the New Orleans Saints. They're talking about Derek Carr, who, like you mentioned, had the confidence to nail the MJ dance. Because if you're going to hit the MJ dance, you got to do it right. You can't be off rhythm. You can't fall over. You see Mike Gesicki hit the gritty a few years ago, and he still gets flamed for his mediocre gritty attempts. So a lot of courage to do the MJ dance with Derek Carr, and it worked out very well. Something else that's worked out very well for the Saints, and that's my biggest takeaway from not just this game, but the last 2 games. Everything that we thought would be a weakness for this team has been a strength. We talked endlessly about the offensive line, about Trevor Penning, about a rookie starting at left tackle, and through 2 games, the Saints have given up 2 sacks. The offensive line has been incredible, not just protecting their franchise quarterback in Derek Carr, but also blocking for the run. Alvin Kamara running for, 120 yards yesterday? 119, something like that. The offensive line hasn't just been good through 2 weeks. It's been great through 2 weeks. That was supposed to be their biggest weakness. We talked about a lot of uncertainty, and heck, even Dennis Allen talked about it. The uncertainty at the second safety position. We knew Tyrann Mathieu would be back here doing his thing, but the uncertainty at who would play opposite of him. Would it be Will Harris? Would it be Jordan Howden? Through 2 weeks, they both have an interception.
Yeah.
And Will Harris had a bunch of big hits yesterday that changed the course of that Cowboys game. That second and Tyrann Mathieu also had an interception yesterday. He's had an interception. That second safety position has been solid. You look at the run game. That was something else. We said they're going to have to be able to run the ball. Alvin Kamara, through 2 weeks, has looked the best he's looked in 2 years, you could argue. He's looked like vintage AK, if you want to take that term. The play calling that had gotten so stale over the last few years, it's been dynamic with Clint Kubiak. He's been everything that they said he would be creatively. He has been that. And last but not least, Derek Carr. Derek Carr's been playing some of the best football that we've seen him play in years. And I saw Derek Carr didn't have a single pass attempt yesterday where he held the ball 4 seconds or longer. And that speaks to this new Clint Kubiak offense. It's a lot of moving parts. It's getting the ball out there quick, which makes it easier on your offensive line, which is still very young and still learning the ropes in some ways. I just think that everything that we thought the Saints would struggle at, they have excelled at. And that's why they're sitting 2-0, where a lot of people may not have guessed that they'd be 2-0 to start the season.
And it's not just that they've excelled or that they've like, I could have talked myself into the offensive line being a little bit better than what I saw in preseason once the regular season started, when the games. I could have talked myself into thinking that. I didn't think it'd be the biggest strength on the team.
Yeah.
Okay, the run blocking has been the biggest strength on the team. The biggest difference is their ability to get to the edge. I mean, they're calling toss plays to the edge or quarterback sweeps with Taysom on third, medium, and longer. Like, they didn't do that in years past. The offensive line is in such unison with each other. You would think this is a group that has played together for 5 years, not a team or not a group with 3 new starters and a whole new coaching staff with how much cohesion they seem to be playing with right now. So, like, it's not just that they're better than we thought. It's arguably the best position group on the team right now. And because that has been rock solid, you see what else is able to go off of that. You know, you mentioned Derek Carr getting the ball out quickly. That's because the play calling is so in line with his skill set. He just knows exactly where to go with the ball. And I keep using this term, and I hope people understand what I mean. There is no post-snap ambiguity like there is in other systems where there's a little bit of gray area in certain things with what you're doing pre- and post-snap. Get into the right play, get out of the right play, reading the coverage, executing a play call. And are you on the same page as your receivers? This system is a little more defined. You hear that a lot when you talk about this offense. So I'm not here to dump on Pete Carmichael. Y'all know my thoughts on Pete Carmichael. You don't win a Super Bowl without Pete Carmichael. But I do think Pete Carmichael and the former head coach Sean Payton ran a system that was the talk of the town for years. But that era is over. Or at the very least, that offense no longer works. That detailed offense no longer works without the detailed quarterback that made it work.
Yep.
And even with a quarterback like Derek Carr, who by all accounts has a very good football IQ and high football IQ, it was too much for him too. So they bring in this system, which it takes a lot of things off of Derek Carr's plate, which adds more on the production side of things. And I mean, look at the body language. Look at the body language with Derek Carr. Now, it's great to have great body. Oh my goodness, it's great to have great body language when you're winning. But look at the body language and just think last year how much that didn't exist. There's something else too. The most important thing Dennis Allen said in the post game was interesting, because at some point he was asked about what are they doing as coaches to have these guys ready and to a level of execution that you're not seeing around the rest of the NFL. He said it's twofold. He said details and accountability. Details and what they're doing, what they're asking players to do, and clearly communicating that to a point where they understand what they're doing, and accountability. What does that tell you? Guys were not accountable last year. Mm-hmm. Guys were sloppy in their details last year. And they don't play that with especially not on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Derek Carr said this in training camp, and I read Albert Breer's article, which Albert Breer, SI.com, is the lead of his whatever the Monday morning quarterback thing he does was the Saints. And he said, all the coaches on the offensive side of the ball teach everything the same way. They're all on the same page. It doesn't always happen. You can see that. Look at the cohesion with the offensive line. Watch the wide receivers, the detail they play with. I've been saying this for the last 2 years, just how much the Saints receivers frustrated me with their lack of detail. It stood out last year when they played the Rams. Remember on that Thursday night?
Oh, yeah.
And it was Nakua and Kupp, who are both hurt right now. But the level of detail they ran their routes with versus Olave and Shaheed at the time, it was night and day. Now you're seeing those guys run those details, and it's made the world of difference. In a run-first offense where they're not throwing the ball a lot, Carr threw 16 times. I think he had 23 passes in the first game. Yep. So it's not like they're getting a whole lot of opportunities, but yet it feels like they're doing what they want in the passing game. So it almost feels like they're having a bigger impact in the passing game despite not having that many more or way less pass attempts. So all good vibes, all good synergy, all good feelings. And I don't think you could have asked for if you were to ask DA, okay, how do I want this to look early on? I think he would say this has surpassed even the best version of what I thought could happen.
Yeah,
the first 2 weeks, 47 points, 44 points, just knocking the socks off of everyone. And there's already talk around the national wave. Clint Kubiak's next hot name in terms of offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Now it's only 2 weeks, but look, that's the discussion and the narrative that takes place when you do these types of things. And this is the types of stuff now that kind of the floor has been reset for the Saints, and now you have to embrace a different set of challenges.
Right, and to add on to the theme of their weaknesses being their strengths, something else we talked about, you mentioned it earlier, Rashid Shaheed. We talked about the Saints, Chris Olave is their clear number one, but we said, are we sure that Rashid Shaheed is a top-end wide receiver too? We talked about the depth at that receiver position, and Rashid Shaheed has been one of the breakout stars of the early part of this season, not just in the city of New Orleans, but across the entire NFL. We talked about their tight ends. We said, do they have enough at that tight end position? And then the guy who we talked about a lot in being the undrafted free agent, Dallin Holker, he hasn't played yet.
Yeah.
But Foster Moreau has 2 touchdowns through 2 games, and Jawan Johnson has a touchdown that he caught it against the Carolina Panthers.
Foster had one called back when they ran at league play. Foster had one called back Sunday.
It's been some of their best offense has been to the tight ends so far. So, everything that we thought they would struggle with, they have succeeded with so far, and there's still more because they really and truly have not unleashed Taysom yet. And they have not really Olave hasn't had a game yet. I don't think they've unleashed Olave or Taysom through the first 2 weeks, so I think there's still a lot more that we can see from this offense as we head into week 3 and beyond.
Well, they haven't unleashed Taysom from an actual production standpoint, but they're starting to really, if you especially watch how much he's in the game early, when they put him in, different spots, tailback, fullback, H-back, tight end, what they're trying to do, they're trying to get a read on how the defense is playing him, how they choose to play him. And they're doing it, they're very calculated because they're doing it very early to get a read, and that sets them up for the rest of the day. Taysom Hill being banged up is something I'm certainly watching because you can tell that's something, he is a chess piece that Kubiak has never had before in terms of that skill set that you can tell he's certainly leaning on just for no other reason than to kind of decode information from the opposition. Now, that leads me to my next point, and we're going to go here next. Feels great right now.
Yeah.
Feels fantastic right now. Let me remind everyone, it's September, 2 weeks into the season. There is still a long, long, long way to go. And there are going to be some bumps in the road in this offense for 2 reasons. Okay? One is what we just said. Taysom Hill's banged up. Not just him, but Managing health is always an issue. Every offense, every NFL team has got to deal with. You just hope you don't have to deal with as much as you've had to in years past. But managing health is always something, and it always causes a little bit of a ripple effect and adjustments in game planning, what you're doing at game day. And the other is this. This is probably the biggest. It's the tape. Yeah. Right now, Clint Kubiak with the Saints is still new, fresh. You're not quite sure what he's going to do in certain situations. But as you accumulate more games, you accumulate more data. Defensive coordinators get smarter and smarter. They figure out a way to play you, and then you gotta punch back because they're gonna move a different piece on the chessboard, and you gotta move a different one at that point. That's just the way it goes. That's why the NFL is so challenging. That's why it's so rewarding. That's why it's so hard, because it's impossible to get on a roll and stay on a roll because the coaches and the opposition are so tough and so smart. They're gonna do all they can to stop you. And right now, you're the talk of the town, like we said. Yeah. You're the talk of the town. So everybody's looking at you right now. What are they doing? How do we stop it? Especially their opponents. So that's just something that is coming. That is coming. And we'll see how they adjust to other teams' adjustments. But for right now, get as much as you can while the newness is still there. Stack as many wins as possible while the newness of the scheme is still there and the personnel and teams are trying to figure out what you're going to do. And then you adjust when it's time to adjust, because no one wants to see a team peak in September.
Yeah.
No one. And Dennis Allen has never had a 3-game win streak as a head coach. So what does that mean? Dealing with success has never quite been easy for him or his team. It's time to change that narrative.
And something else that's on the way as we talk about a potential 3-game winning streak, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the way. Mm-hmm. They're playing Monday night against the Atlanta Falcons, so they're dipping their toe into the NFC South waters. And that's what the Saints proved a lot against Dallas, because after week 1, a lot of people were saying it's just Carolina. Let's see them against a better team. They proved a lot in the way that they beat Dallas. One thing that I would still like to see from the Saints, particularly that defense, is how they stop a mobile quarterback. Mm-hmm. We have seen several mobile quarterbacks come into that dome and run wild on the Saints. Jalen Hurts is one of the best and most dangerous mobile quarterbacks in the entire NFL. Now, they brought in Willie Gay Jr. from Kansas City. Willie Gay Jr. is an athlete, and in Kansas City, he excelled. He had a specific package that was all dedicated to slowing down mobile quarterbacks. So the next thing we want to see from the Saints, they look like the real deal right now. We believe they're a real deal right now, but can they overcome something that has plagued them as a defense for years?
Absolutely. Fair. Very fair. And this is why you brought a guy like Willie Gay Jr. in. Yeah. I mean, that skill set, probably more than anything else, was the one they coveted the most. This is a guy that understands dual threat quarterbacks, how to play them and how to take angles. And it's very hard to match up with dual threat quarterbacks that if you're a linebacker, because, I mean, if you're a dual threat quarterback, you probably got some elusive speed. It's just hard to find linebackers with that kind of speed to match a quarterback with more speed than that linebacker, because there's almost every quarterback in the NFL is mobile now, but only 3 in the NFL, at least in my opinion, right now as we currently stand, truly scare me with their mobility. It's Lamar Jackson, it's Josh Allen, and it's Jalen Hurts. Yeah. Because they've had success using it. They've had time to at times really perfect the dual threat thing where they're not just running, but running to throw it, running to run it. So Jalen Hurts has been a thorn in the Saints' side for a couple of years now. So he's someone. It's a whole new challenge, and it's a good challenge because, again, a little bit like last week, like I said, the Hurricane didn't allow them to really celebrate that win too much. The challenge of Jalen Hurts and the mobile quarterback with his success against the Saints, I think, allows the DA and the coaching staff to really hone in on his team. And if he's got to be a little bit of a stickler, so be it, to not let them get too high with their celebration over this victory. You and the fan base, feel free. Have fun. Oh, yeah. Get after it. You deserved it. You earned it. This team has been middle of the road, middle of the pack the last couple seasons. It's been incredibly frustrating, not just for you, but for those of us that cover the team. So I'm very, very, very happy the Saints were able to get the job done in Dallas, because I got to tell you, man, AT&T Stadium, they weren't very friendly, man. They weren't very friendly to me, man. I don't think I haven't been harassed like that on a field maybe ever. I mean, it was really something. And I was like genuinely mad leaving the field. I just don't get like that pregame because we got a show to do. But all in all, I was happy to see the Saints get the win. It was a little bit of personal there for me because of how I felt like I I was treated there by some of the AT&T staff.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be happy to be back in the Dome. They treat us right in the
They
Dome.
treat us good
now.
over there,
Yeah,
yes.
so it'll be fun. Important to mention, last time the Saints played the Eagles, it was Gardner Minshew
yeah.
at quarterback. They won. They did. I believe that was the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl.
2022, yeah. It was one of the two teams that beat them, yeah.
Right. So the Saints did beat the Eagles the last time they played. It was Gardner Minshew at quarterback. The year before that, it was Jalen Hurts. I believe they played the 2 years before that, and it was Jalen Hurts that played them those years. But that was kind of when he was younger, before he really figured it out in that Super Bowl season. So the Saints haven't seen this version of Jalen Hurts. But Dak Prescott, I believe he's overrated at times. But a lot of people see Dak Prescott as a top-tier quarterback, and the Saints made him look silly. Bryce Young, recently benched Bryce Young in Carolina. The Saints made him look silly. If the Saints can do that to Jalen Hurts, a Saints defense that we believe to be one of the top defensive units in the NFL, all the national talk that's centered around New Orleans, it's only going to get louder.
It's only going to get louder, and that's part of the challenge. But look, part of the good things when it comes to winning is that you just get more confident, and you're starting to feel the confidence, and you're starting to see it all come together and just how great it looks and how great it feels. So do whatever you're doing. Do not change it. Do whatever mentality that you have going into a work week, keep it and stay focused because 24 hours are up, and it's time to turn the page on to the Eagles. Speaking of turning the page, we might have to turn the page on this podcast pretty soon.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to moving forward, including Derek Carr's next touchdown dance. I want to see what he breaks out next if he gets in the end zone again. So I'm very excited.
I'd give that a solid 8. Solid 8 on Michael Jackson.
8 is fair.
I give that a solid 8. Yeah. He says he's a dancer. He said he had to lure his wife in some kind of way.
Well, he's going to have to prove it. So I need him to get another QB sneak or something because I need to see the next touchdown dance. I'm invested now.
I guess we'll see. All right. For Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.